Hello, and welcome to the Views Expressed, a public affairs program on WACA-TV here in Ashland, Massachusetts. Tonight we have a special guest in our ongoing series for candidates for Governor's Council. We have David Reservitx. I hope I got your name correct,
It did.
sir. Oh,
Hi.
fantastic. Hi, well, welcome to the Views Expressed.
Thanks for having
This
me.
is, oh, you're very welcome. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Uh, first off, who are you? Tell us a little bit about your personal background.
Sure. I'm a lawyer, been a trial attorney for about 28 years now. Originally from Brockton, Massachusetts. I went to high school in Easton, Massachusetts, which is the town next door. It's still in this District 2 of the Governor's Council. It's a huge district of 37 towns. I currently live in Needham, which is the kind of top right corner-ish of the district, along with Milton in that area. Goes all the way out to Framingham and Ashland.
It's a big
So,
district.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a lawyer. I'm a father. I've got 4 kids. And I've been active in the legal community and the judicial selection process in the past. And it's something that I'm really passionate about.
Mr. Reservitz, now know a little bit about you, and we'll be digging into your professional background probably a little bit more in depth as we go
Sure.
along. Before we get too into our discussion, I was wondering if you could help out our viewers. A lot of folks don't even know, well, I shouldn't don't even, it's kind of esoteric, even for those who are well-informed voters. A
Yeah,
lot of folks don't know what Governor's Council is. If you
true.
could let us know what it is
Most
and let us
people.
know why you're running.
Yeah, it's something that needs to change a little bit. The Governor's Council is an interesting body of government. Um, it at times has been controversial, but it's a very important body of government. It is a board that consists of 8 elected individuals statewide. Each district, I'm running for District 2, which includes Ashland, it's an open seat. Each district comprises of a combination of 5 senatorial districts. So they're huge districts. And if you do the math, there are 40 senators, there are 8 districts, combination of 5. So the math kind of checks out there. The Governor's Council is now in charge largely of vetting and casting the final votes on judicial appointments, lawyers that are seeking to become judges. It also handles these types of vetting and votes for other important jobs like clerk magistrates, board of appeals, parole board officers and candidates, and clerk magistrates. And the other major function, although less frequent, of the Governor's Council is if the governor wants to issue a pardon or a commutation or shortening of a prison sentence or jail sentence, that must be either approved or denied by the Governor's Council as well.
So why are you running for Governor's Council?
Like I mentioned before, I'm a lawyer, and more so than even being a lawyer, I'm a former judicial nominating commissioner, which means I have selected judges in the past. Another thing that a lot of people don't know about is how do you become a judge in Massachusetts? Other
Mhm.
states actually elect their judges, certainly in the southern states. You'll see judges and their supporters standing outside, re-elect Judge Smith. Massachusetts doesn't do that. They take a more technical approach, as Massachusetts and other northeastern states and many other western states like California, they will appoint their judges through other legal professionals. They leave it to the lawyers and the elected officials on the Governor's Council. So in doing so, there is essentially 2 boards. The first board is called the Judicial Nominating Commission. Now, that board is appointed and selected by the sitting governor. For example, I was appointed by Governor Deval Patrick. I'm a Democrat. I was a big fan of Governor Deval Patrick's administration. I had previously been the president of my bar association and a public defender, and that caught the ear of then Governor Deval Patrick, and he appointed me to his Judicial Nominating Commission. That's the first stop that lawyers make in their journey to become a judge. If they're successful, they then move on to the Governor's Council. I loved the work I did on the JNC, as they call it, for Deval Patrick. When we served as commissioners there were about 21 lawyers from across the state. Um, we appointed some of the best judges that are on the bench today, and we appointed more minority LGBTQ judges, female judges than any JNC before or in any administration since. That's what I'm
So this
trying to get back to do, Makita.
okay, okay, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting when we started the show. You kind of you said, well, the governor's council is legal. That's going to change a little bit. That's going to tee up my next question.
Yeah.
For a number of years now, and it seems like every time we've got an election, especially when we've got a governor's council open seat situation, there's a lot of discussion around the utility of the governor's council.
Yeah.
Some folks feel like it has outlived its usefulness. It's
Sure.
and we can dig into this because it seems like the two approaches most widely seen in the United States are either something like this, a governor's council situation, or you
Right.
get a situation where judges are elected. I'm
Right.
just curious as to, and I don't, it's not a binary choice, but I'm just curious where you stand about the governor's council and its current incarnation, and
Yeah.
the utility of it. And
Yeah,
it's
it's a great question, and I think it's really interesting to discuss it. I mean, I can certainly see why some people feel it has outlived its objective and perhaps its purpose. Uh, Frankly, it's outlived many other governing boards entirely. It dates back to the 1600s, the Governor's Council. It is older than our nation's and our state's constitutions. So obviously it was enacted by the Brits, and I think it was done so to keep tabs on the governor that was installed by the British before we as a nation gained our freedom. Um, and it's gone through a lot of changes over those centuries, mostly reducing its responsibilities. But that doesn't mean that it is not necessary. In fact, I think it's extremely necessary. And the main reason why is because I think it is a check and balance. So the JNC that I mentioned before,
Mhm.
that is an appointed board chosen by the governor. So I'm a Democrat. I was a supporter of Deval Patrick. Every member of that JNC that I was on was also a Democrat selected by Deval Patrick. So in theory, the people of Massachusetts can elect whichever governor's counselor they want. Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, middle of the road. Um, and they're going to represent them on the governor's council. And they may say, I understand, governor, that you want this candidate and you put this candidate to your JNC and your JNC approved this candidate, but my constituents, that's not a good fit for our community. We're looking for someone that is a true representative of this district. And so it serves as that final check and balance. And why not have it? It's just added protection to the citizens.
Just a follow-up question to that. So, you talk about the JNC and the governor's council and how they, that the governor's council is a check on that particular commission. So, do you still feel that the JNC is necessary? Because if
It's also a
I
great
did,
question. I
yeah,
do. I
okay,
do, and I'll tell
okay,
you why.
all right.
Because vetting judges should be a very thorough process. We are appointing people to very powerful positions, and they have a mandatory retirement at age 70. So Governor Patrick, for example, happened to prefer younger judges. If you appoint a judge at 40 years old, you are stuck with that judge for 30 years. You better choose a good one that really serves the community and has the right knowledge, the right experience, the right compassion, but also the right understanding of when it's time to be strict. Um, so, I mean, these judges, as we know, whether it be a criminal matter where they're affecting someone's liberty, something in the probate and family court affecting something as crucial as child custody and visitation, a major civil case that could be over real estate that people own, their largest asset, or tens of thousands of dollars. It could be a serious injury case in our superior courts or in our Board of Industrial Accidents. It could be a housing matter where someone's facing eviction. Either way, they affect people's lives in such an impactful way that these judges will be ruling on issues like that day in and day out. So the process should be extremely thorough, extremely thoughtful. And it's like we say, put a second set of eyes on this. So first, you've got the JNC. That is not a quick process. These candidates, it's the grassroots process. They're brought up from their law practices and they are examined as potential judges if they so choose to be. And then they come in for an interview. And then if they pass through the first phase, then they are put to what we call due diligence. And then commissioners are assigned to really investigate these attorneys to see if they're qualified. And that means usually calling the people that aren't as obvious, not the friends and family, not the law partners, but the lawyers that were maybe on the other side of a case that they handled, or judges on a case that maybe they didn't prevail on. And you really get a good understanding. It doesn't have to be a lawyer that wins all their cases. It doesn't even have to be the best lawyer that makes the best judge. It has to be someone that has the right temperament, someone that has the right balance. And then, if successful, they're put to the governor's council, and that's where they get that check and balance.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I will keep my eye out on these different arguments because it seems like I said, every election cycle, there seems to be like a little pushback, and it'll be fascinating to find out as the years progress, like where we land as a Commonwealth with
Yeah,
Governor's Council. But right now, the race is on, and we are talking about your candidacy. So
that's right.
let's let's move back to you. Um, Most folks who are running for governor's council feel very passionately about a lot of areas around justice, policy issues. I'm just curious, what are maybe the top two issues or concerns that you have that inspired you to jump into this race?
Yeah, thank you. We all have our different platforms and priorities, but we also have a lot in common. I'm speaking of my Democratic uh, opponents, because we're all Democrats. Um, Two of the Democratic opponents running against me, who are great people, take an approach to prison reform and a social justice platform, and they want to see changes in the incarceration rates. And I agree with that. Um, and fortunately, if you look at the data, incarceration rates are moving in the right direction. Less so for minorities, but they're still moving in the right direction, thankfully. And as a result, we're experiencing the closure of a prison in Norfolk where they are putting migrants uh, in on another controversial issue. Um, I have a more, I think like a lawyer, I've been a lawyer for more than half my life. So my approach to the council is more broad than that. Yes, I support rehabilitation and diversion over incarceration on criminal matters. I was a public defender and I've tried many criminal cases to verdict. Um, but I've also switched my career to civil. And so I'm also able to represent this district from day one on civil matters, including financial matters, family matters, housing matters, injury cases that can really affect people's lives. And I want to make sure that the judges that we pick are qualified to protect the people of the district. So it's not necessarily one area because the judges have more than one area that they have uh, to handle. Um, as far as political agendas go, well, like my opponents, I'm a Democrat. I don't want to vote for any judges that don't support a woman's right to choose. I'm going to be pro-labor, and I want to reach out to the labor unions and make sure that they feel accurately represented. Uh, I want to make sure that we have judges that are going to be tough on gun laws and sympathetic to drug addicts and tough on drug dealers. These are the things that I see as a attorney having practiced in the district and superior courts for so many years. Families come in sometimes begging judges for help because a family member has an addiction and they need to have them sectioned, as they say, for help. Because addiction, mental health issues can really rip apart a family. And the judge needs to make the decision as to, and it can be an often difficult decision, as to take away the liberty and freedom of someone who's affected by mental health or addiction. So those are some of the issues that I'm really passionate about. It's hard to believe, getting back to the women's rights. I mean, there are 2 men and 2 women in the Democratic race. I'm a father of 3 daughters, now all in their 20s. And I'm a lawyer and I'm a man of the law. And I never thought that we would be seeing in 2024 states banning abortion and actually having the discussion of a nationwide ban on abortion with the Hobbs case overturning Roe v. Wade. We want to make sure that Massachusetts doesn't fall into that trap. We want to make sure that Massachusetts stays smarter and more modern than the rest of this country with the protection of those crucial rights and freedoms.
Well, you have run through a number of issues that you got asked for two, and you gave me a lot, which is
I,
great. But um, I'd actually like to find out a little bit more about but how you've come to some of these conclusions, and usually when I do that, I ask folks specifically around about their backgrounds. I'm just curious, what prompted you to get into law? Why are you in the law now? What
yeah,
inspired you around
I'm
that?
not sure I remember, Makita. I've been a lawyer for almost 30 years. I just remember always wanting to be a lawyer. The truth is, my father was a lawyer. Uh,
Okay.
my dad was a lawyer for 40 years. My great uncle was a lawyer. We all come from the city of Brockton, which has been a very busy, exciting place to practice law. My great uncle hung a shingle as an attorney in that city in 1937. My father hung a shingle in 1967, and I hung a shingle in 1997. Um, I've just always loved the idea that I can stand up, make arguments for people, and really make a difference. And it's exciting. And when you're a young lawyer, and I remember being a young lawyer in the 90s and carrying just a huge pile of files um, as a public defender and spending the entire day in a busy district court making bail arguments for the release of usually indigent defendants. The day would go so fast. It's just thrilling.
I was going to ask you why. So we know why you started, but what kept you in it? Like, it sounds like it was exciting, but you've practiced different kinds of law. You
Yeah.
were public defender,
Yeah.
and then you mentioned you started practicing civil law. I don't know if there are any other kinds of law that you
Um,
practice in between there, but
what kept me in it? Well, a lot of things.
yeah,
A mortgage kept me in it.
that's an honest
Um,
answer.
it's a very honest answer.
Yeah.
If you're successful as an attorney, you can make a good living. And I don't want to hide that because I think in politics, sometimes that is used as a negative. And I've never quite understood that. If you represent a client and you do a good job, and then you do it over and over and over again, and you learn and you become a great lawyer and you get to know the judges and know how to read the judges, and then you continue to have success. Not only does it make someone an excellent candidate for the governor's council, but it makes them a successful attorney. So I've had success in my law practice. I've also changed the practice of law with the economics. It's good, like anything, it's good to diversify. I can handle real estate, I handle housing and civil matters, and I handle criminal matters.
It's fascinating. Going back to what you were talking about a little bit earlier, talking about like, you know, what makes a good judge. I think you had mentioned, and I apologize if I'm putting words in your mouth, but the best lawyers don't always make the best judges. And you
That's true.
talked about so, and you also talked about temperament.
Yeah.
So, what do you mean by the right temperament? But I also want to talk about like core competencies from a technical standpoint too. What you would be looking for
Yeah.
in judges. So, if you could expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. It's a combination of a few very important things. So I think the first place to start is with the core competencies. A lawyer that is seriously considered to become a judge usually has at least 10 years of solid legal experience, ideally a little bit more. But you don't want to appoint a 60-year-old attorney to spend 10 years on the bench and then be filling that seat again. So typically between, say, 15 and 25 years experience is ideal. That's a lot of experience. But within that experience, we JNC commissioners and governor's counselors ideally like to see lawyers that have diverse experience, or as lawyers say, lawyers that have represented parties on both sides of the V, as they say. So a typical case is Smith versus Jones, and Smith is the plaintiff and Jones is the defendant. And when we are asking lawyers about their experience, if they're going to oversee a courtroom with plaintiffs and defendants, we want to know, have you represented plaintiffs and defendants? There's a lot of candidates that might come before the JNC or the Governor's Council that have spent 30 years as an insurance defense attorney, handling just specific insurance defense issues. It doesn't mean they're not going to be qualified judges, but it does mean that they're not going to have the benefit of the experience of representing an individual in a civil case or an individual defendant in a criminal case. Solo practicing attorneys, small general practice lawyers often make great judges because they might handle a probate family law matter, a divorce case, a child custody case. And then the next day they might find themselves doing a criminal arraignment. And then perhaps there's an automobile accident where a client breaks a leg and the insurance company doesn't want to settle the case and they got to try a civil case. They might find themselves in the Board of Industrial Accidents fighting for an employee's rights or an employment discrimination case. Um, any types of those matters can come before a judge, restraining orders, simple things like that. So it's great to dig into the attorney's practice through the attorney and through other individuals who have come to know that attorney professionally to learn about their actual knowledge and experience. And then you have to look at their personality and their temperament
Let's
and
talk
their,
about that temperament.
yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
an overused word because
it,
it's so important.
okay. So define what do you mean by ideal temperament for for that position? What do you mean? What do you mean when you say that?
Litigation is an adversarial process. It can be very heated. Sometimes the lawyers don't even behave. I hate to say it. It's the judge's job to keep order in the court, to essentially be the referee or the umpire, to decide what's in evidence, what's not in evidence, and how a dispute is going to be resolved between the attorneys and sometimes between the parties if there's no jury. Um, so it takes a special temperament to do so. A good judge, as we know, is unbiased, right? They do not attach themselves or their opinions. They simply review the evidence and apply the law. And in doing so, it is best to see a judge apply it with an even keeled temperament. So when I say some of the best attorneys don't make the best judges, here's what I mean. As a trial lawyer, I know who the great trial lawyers are. And some of the best trial lawyers in our state are real showboaters. They are dramatic. They are incredible orators. They are incredible. Uh, they have incredible oral argument. They have uh, a real fight in them. And those are great trial attorneys to hire if you've got a major case on the line. But they don't necessarily translate those skills to applying the law from the bench. So that's where the temperament comes in. And there's just also community attachment. You don't, you might get a lawyer that, moved here from another state and has had a lot of success in their careers, but they don't really know the community. And when you're sitting on the bench and people from the community are coming before you, it's good to have some um, way to relate to them and to really understand what's going on in people's lives that are coming before you.
That's a very difficult combination. Impartiality, the ability to take control of a situation and basically be, a combination of a referee, you know, keeping order in the court, as you said, but also and applying the law, without bias. There's a lot going on in a courtroom and a lot of things that a judge has to do in order to make it run successfully and fairly and evenly, it sounds like. So thank you
That's
for,
why.
yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead,
and
go ahead.
that's why the judicial appointment process is so important. We have over
Yeah.
400 judges protecting the people of this Commonwealth. And
Mhm.
for the most part, they do just what you said. They balance those skills and they do an excellent job.
Well, we don't have too much more time. There's one quick question that I'll ask. I'll ask you to answer it relatively succinctly, and then we'll get into your closing arguments as to why you should be elected to governor's council. Really quickly, going back to the utility of governor's council, we talked about the JNC, but a lot of folks also say that the governor's council tends to be a rubber stamp for the governor.
Heard that.
So it does not actually act as a check or a balance. What are your what how would you respond to that, and how would you ensure if you were elected that that would not occur?
Yeah. Well, I'll make a promise that I'm not going to be a rubber stamp. I'll make a promise that I have more experience than most, uh, certainly than the candidates running against me. But with all due respect, I have more experience than most candidates running for governor's council statewide. I know how to vet a judge, and I don't want to see any bad appointments going to the courtrooms in this district, whether it be the Framingham District Court, Rentham, uh, Brockton, Attleboro, and all the other smaller courthouses that we have in our district or anywhere in the state. Um, the other thing I would say is that while there are overwhelmingly more affirmations of judicial appointments, there are some judges and other professional appointees that are not successful in getting through the governor's council. But one thing I'll say in defense of the high rate of affirmations is that that is the JNC doing their job. So if the JNC really does a thorough job, they're not going to let non-qualified candidates through.
And we're gonna stop it there and just, Mr. Reservitx, why should people vote for you on September 3rd in the primary?
Thank you. I'm passionate about this and I'm experienced. Um, and I want to protect the people of this district by making sure that the judges that we have are fair, that they're compassionate, that they will understand what's going on in the lives of the human beings that come before them. And I know how to do it. I've done it before. I have almost 30 years experience, and I'm within the legal field, but I've also been appointed and elevated within the field. I was the president of the Bar Association and was appointed by Governor Deval Patrick to the JNC. My qualifications significantly exceed anyone else running against me, and I'm ready to start on day one.
And we're going to have to leave it at that, Mr. Reservitx. Dave Reservitx is running for Governor's Council District 2. Mr. Reservitx, how can people get in touch with the campaign?
I want to be available every way there is, so I hand out my cell phone number, 508-942-6902. I have a website, www.votefor.dave.net, and I have email as well. It's Dave at vote4 Dave.com. I'm sorry, at gmail.com.
At gmail.com. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much again for joining us, Mr. Reservitx. And thank you, Ashland, and other folks who are tuning in for hanging out with us here at the Views Expressed. Once again, doing an episode around Governor's Council. And we're just hoping that the folks in Ashland and other districts find these interviews helpful and help you make an educated choice about who our next governor's counselor will be. Thanks again for visiting us, and thank you for watching the Views Express on WACA-TV.